What's good, my dear language learning master? And welcome to a new episode of the Language Input Podcast, in which, as you know, my goal is to help you understand that we can all learn any language when you're in the process every step of the way. That's right. And with that in mind, I'm going to talk about different topics related to language learning to, like I said, to help you understand that is completely possible, all right? And that the fact that you haven't been able to learn a foreign language yet doesn't mean that you're not talented for languages or that it's never going to work. No. Because the problem is actually the traditional grammar approach that is so dominant all over the world, unfortunately, all right? But, I want you to know that you too can learn any language when you're in the process. I'm totally convinced, all right? And with that being said, let's get into today's topic. And today I want to talk about a few tips to help us in our language learning journey, okay? Like a few little tips, and as you've probably seen on the title of this episode, they're tips and not hacks. They have nothing to do with, ways to hack our brains so we can memorize words in a better way, or how to learn a language faster. No, it has nothing to do with that, because as I've said many times before, there's no such a thing, right? There's no shortcut to language learning and things like that, all right? So rather than that, I'm going to talk about a few little tips to help us, or to help make the message more comprehensible for us, or to help us get access to specific resources and activities that wouldn't otherwise be comprehensible. All right, if that makes sense. All right, so yeah, so let's go with mini tip or little tip number one. And this one, it may seem super simple, but I've tried it myself, I felt it myself, and I can really feel the difference. And little tip number one is to use headphones. Actually, yeah, it's that simple. But let me explain. Especially when you're getting started with a language, or when you're watching cartoons, documentaries, or similar resources, with a language that you're just getting started with, right? Because if you're really proficient in a language, it's not that it's not going to make a difference, but you don't need to, right? You don't need to use headphones or in order to make message more comprehensible, because you already understand pretty much everything, right? But the thing is, I've used this mainly with Polish, but a little bit with French, especially when watching like original series or movies, because I don't exactly know the reason why, but I have the feeling it has to do with with canceling out the outside noise, or being more focused on what you're listening to. But for whatever the reason, when I'm using headphones, I can understand more than when I'm not. All right. So if we take into account the exact same resource, I can understand way more. Well, I mean, I don't know way more, but I can understand more if I'm using headphones as opposed to not using them. All right. And like I said, it's a super simple idea, super simple tip. But I've whether that's because it cancels out outside noise, or because you're more focused on it. For whatever the reason, just again, as I'm always talking about, just give it a try and let me know in the comment section, all right? But it certainly, it certainly has made a difference for me, especially with Polish, like I said, and I continue to use this idea with Polish or original series in French, or with the new languages that I'm starting to learn, that it's German and Russian right now, all right? And it's a super simple little tip, but I really recommend you check it out, or you give it a try, because it does make a difference. Yeah. All right. So that's little tip number one, and that's the kind of tips that I'm talking about. Like I said at the beginning, like little tips to help you understand the message in a better way, or to help you get access to specific resources that would be a little bit a little bit out of reach for you in that specific moment. All right, so this, like I said, just check it out or give it a try. It does make a difference. All right, and let's go now with little tip number 2. All right, and this is specifically for YouTube, but I believe there's other platforms that have this option, right? But I'm talking about slowing down the pace of the video, right? And again, it's another super simple idea, super simple tip, but it works as well. It makes it makes the message or the content more comprehensible, right? Of course, like I'm always talking about, just give things a try and try to find different resources according to your level, okay? Because even if you use headphones, or even if you slow down the pace, if you're just starting out with a language, you're not gonna be able to understand a movie. If you're just starting out with Japanese and you've never learned Japanese before, even if you slow down the pace and even if you use headphones, you're not gonna understand anything, right? So, when I'm talking about these little tips, like use them to your advantage according to your level, all right? But this is another thing that I use a lot when I'm getting started with a language, because many times the main problem when you can't understand a specific resource when you're a beginner is people speak a little bit too fast, or you don't. To put it into simple words, you don't have enough time to process what they're talking about. Okay, if that makes sense. On a subconscious level, of course, usually. I'm not talking about thinking things through and about, grammar, verb tenses, and so on. No. And so when I'm starting out with a language and I'm watching videos on YouTube, you have the option to slow down the pace of the video, and as a default, you have like the option of actually speed it up or slow it down. And as a default, you have the option of slow it down to 0.75x and 0.5x, if I'm not mistaken. But I've found that that's a little bit too slow, and of course it's gonna help you, but it's not natural, because they're gonna speak like that, and it's a bit weird. But and I think I believe this only works for the laptop, like browser YouTube option, and but you can actually personalize it or customize it. So you do have the option to personalize it for 0.9 or 0.95. And that's the one I've noticed that really works for me, like to slow it down just a little bit, like 0.95 or 0.9, depending on your needs. As usual, just give it a try, and if 0.95 is still a little bit too fast, try 0.9, even 0.85, just adjust to your level of proficiency in that specific moment, all right? But I really think that specific frame, between 0.85 and 0.95 really makes things easier, or really helps you when it comes to understanding the message while keeping it natural, all right? Because if you go as low as 0.75 or even 0.5, it's just, it's gonna sound a little bit weird, But again, give it a try, and let me know as well, because I'll be more than happy to know what your experience is with these little ideas. If it helped you out, if it really helped you understand a specific resource that you weren't able to understand before, things of that nature. All right. But yeah, it's a good idea, because it gives you time to process things, right? Like I said. And also when you slow it down, things are gonna be a little bit more clear as well. So I think it's a pretty good idea. And once again, just a little tip. So I'm not talking about any type of brain hack or whatever you want to call it. Just little tips to make things more accessible, more comprehensible. Like I said. All right. Finally, let's go with little tip number 3. And in this little tip, I'm going to talk about using Dubbin. All right. And when speaking about Dubbin, like a lot of people hate Dubbin because they think it's not natural, or it's kind of weird to hear a person speak and like a different person than the actor or the actress itself, right? And I do understand it to some extent, but that's mainly when we're talking about dubbing to our own native language, right? But I've seen that if you use dubbing the right way, it can be an extremely powerful tool. And I'm talking about using dubbing in a third or fourth language. And let me explain what I mean. All right. So, for example, in Spain, we have the dub version of most movies and series coming from the United States mainly, right? And in that regard, I do understand that it's kind of weird to listen to it, but I'm not talking about that dubbing. I'm talking about, say, say you want to learn Portuguese, all right? And this is something I've done with Portuguese, Italian, French, and I continue to do, right? So, let's imagine that you're learning Portuguese, all right? So, what I'm talking about is that as opposed to trying to understand an original Brazilian series, try to watch an American series dubbed into Portuguese. Right? Does it make sense right now? Or likewise, if you're learning French, don't try to understand original French series right away, but rather try with American series. I'm saying American series because they have the highest amount of movies produced, and most movies and series come from America, right? And if you go on Netflix, which is the platform I use in this regard, because you can actually change the language all the time, so I'm talking about American series, but it's just to illustrate the example, right? But so again, if you're learning French, instead of trying to understand original French series, all right, just try to watch American series on Netflix, but dubbed into French. Because, in general, when you're watching an original series, whatever the country, right, they tend to speak faster. They tend to speak on a closer way to the way people actually speak on the street, which is okay, but it's always going to be harder to understand. Whereas in dubbing, they usually speak in a more clear way, in a more sort of relaxed way, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I've done it with different languages, and I've seen that it's way easier to understand the dub version than the original series. All right. And of course, I do understand that if you're learning French, one of your ultimate goals is to be able to understand original content, right? And I totally understand it, I get it, and I actually agree with it, and I feel the same way. But I'm mainly talking about the in the early stages of trying to understand series and movies and so on. We usually go with original series, and again, that's okay. But like I said, when we're in the early stages of that, I think it's way better to try with American or British or whatever they're from. Like series from a different country dubbed into the country you're trying to learn, if that makes sense. All right. And like I said, I've done it with Portuguese, French, Italian, not Polish, because they have a horrible type of dubbing in which the same person does all the voices. So that's super weird, but anyway. But it can also be helpful when it comes to language learning, but it's just super weird. But the traditional dubbing, let's call it that way, I've done it with Portuguese, French, and Italian, and in the early stages, like I said, it really helped me out because I tried with original series at the beginning as well, and I had a bit of a hard time understanding them because, again, it's just you just have to, wherever you're from, you just have to look at the resources in your own native language, right? That just try to imagine a foreign person trying to learn the language with those series as opposed to an American series dubbed into your language, right? It just makes it so much easier to understand, right? And that can be extremely useful in the early stages of being able to understand series of movies, which are a tremendously interesting resource, right? And they can also be useful when it comes to giving you access to those original series later on down the road, right? When you keep working or you keep improving your knowledge of the language, your understanding, and so on. So those are the three little mini tips that I wanted to talk about in this episode. And yeah, as usual, just don't just take my word for it, but I've tried them out, all of them, and they've really helped me out and continue to do so. So, but like I said, don't just take my word for it and give them a try, and you'll see that they actually make things easier. Like, once again, like number one, using headphones. Number two, slowing down the pace when possible. And number three, dubbing. Those three little mini tips really, really help you out when it comes to making specific resources comprehensible. All right, and giving you access to other resources that otherwise you wouldn't be able to understand. Okay. So with that being said, I thank you once again for listening to the whole episode. I really appreciate it, and I hope you found it useful. And as usual, if you have any comment, any opinion, any question when it comes to the language learning process, to this specific episode or whatever, just feel free to leave your comments down below, and yeah, I'll be more than happy to answer them. All right. So thank you, like I said, and I'll see you everyone in the next episode. And hope you have a good day, whatever you might be. Bye bye.